Good morning, everyone. This is Krista Mills in the Office of Policy, Legislative Initiatives, and Outreach. Welcome to the very first full field implementation training for the RAD notice that was published in November of 2016. And we're glad that you are gathered together across the nation to start the process as we begin implementing the entire notice. So I'm beginning the program because I just came down from the Secretary's office on none other than a RAD briefing, and Brian was still there, and he just walked in.
Hey.
So he's going to be able to give us a welcome and also an update on that meeting, and then we'll transition to the overview and a few notes that I have that I want to pass on to the field. Welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you, and yes, very, very timely. Krista, as I think she just told you, Krista and I were just now up in a meeting with Secretary Carson, briefing him on RAD, and he has congressional hearings coming up very soon, and so we were part of a team that was giving him an overview of RAD, you know, the basics of the demonstration, and then what the different components of HUD do in connection with this. So fair housing was just a small part of this discussion because, you know, he was getting grounded on just the basic operation of RAD, but the group did talk about the important role that fair housing plays, and we talked a little bit about what happens when fair housing considerations are ignored by public housing authorities as they develop these deals, and informed him that he's very likely to get questions about some of the better known cases of this, and we were able to speak to how we're now, you know, as an enterprise, you know, all of the offices recognizing the importance of fair housing in the front end, and how our civil rights notice helps to address some of these issues, and how just really everyone is behind ensuring that these kinds of problems don't occur again. So, you know, Krista and I were prepared to give him an overview. You have here in this room in 5202 in headquarters the real experts and the folks who are doing the hard work here to make sure that RAD deals take into consideration all of the important fair housing principles. And I want to say that this group is being recognized for its work as well. The department has been recognized for its work on RAD as SAMI finalists. These are the most prestigious awards given to federal employees, and so our secretary upstairs also again acknowledged the leadership role of this enterprise in addressing fair housing and other issues in RAD. So I know that the training you're going to get has been one of the, I think, most extensively prepared training I've seen in this department. Folks have really, really put a lot into this. So in the next 2 days, you're going to get an incredible amount of information. And I want to also say that I've had the great pleasure of working directly with many of the trainers to say that these are folks who are prepared to help you understand not just every jot and tittle of the regulations, but what this is all about and why we do it, and the meaningful impact of doing this work. And along the same lines, I want to express my gratitude that the Office of General Counsel is part of this training, and I know we're going to get an overview from Billy Lynch, which I think is very helpful, historical overview of how we got here and why we have these standards when we do public housing reviews, when we do site neighborhood reviews. I think it's important for us to understand that these regulations aren't just our wish for public policy, but we're informed by early litigation in the dim past and that basically site neighborhood standards, other requirements come out of a recognition of the harm that had been done that the courts recognized. And so I think it's very important to connect all of this so that as we do these reviews, we appreciate that we're not just enforcing regulations, but we're doing this because the courts and public policy have stated this is the responsibility of the department to ensure fair housing as we develop new housing, as we make decisions in the siting and rehabilitation of housing. So I'm impressed. The agenda it looks like just a great training for the next 2 days. But more so, I am just really pleased that we're going to be able to build an even more knowledgeable cadre of FHEO staff throughout the country who can safeguard the fair housing rights of all residents. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to address you all, and have a great training.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the opening remarks, and hope you'll be able to stay. Maybe not for 2 days, but at least through Billy's presentation.
And I want to benefit from this because I'm going to go with Jordan on a RAD review very soon.
Right. Field trip coming up. So I also want to recognize the Office of Recapitalization, the Office of Housing that administers RAD, because we've got a couple of folks who are here as contractors and that work with them and work with us in order to provide the RAD resource desk, and that is one of the presentations this morning. So you'll be hearing from some of those folks. And Dan is our able slideshow facilitator and getting us on track. So thank you, Dan, and thank you, Linda, who will be presenting in just a little bit. So a couple of other things that I do want to mention. As we talked about, this is a joint effort between the Office of Housing, the Office of Public Housing, FHEO, and OGC. And it's been a very fruitful effort. Brian's covered the parts that were not fruitful, so I think we've covered that pretty well. But what we're doing today is going to be the first phase of implementation. So we had intended to do a lot more, but when we started to dig into how complex just the site and neighborhood standards review is going to be, and in writing the document and also the guidance and preparing for this training, we realized that all of the other types of reviews that are covered by the RAD notice, such as transfer of assistance, unit configuration, all changes in unit configuration or occupancy, that we're going to have to do a phase 2. So there will be a second training to cover those, but you're going to get a very heavy dose of the site and neighborhood standards implementation of the RAD notice today and tomorrow. Just as a note, we have a lot of RAD deals throughout the nation just in 2017, in the remainder of 2017, and we've provided this to the regional directors. We have 22 in region. I'm going to go just for the top 3, 22 in Region 4 that are on schedule to be completed by the end of 2017, and we have 11 in Region 3 as well as 11 in Region 6. So those are the top 3 regions that are working on RAD. That does not mean that all of those deals will go through. Sometimes the financing packages fall apart for various reasons, but that is our anticipated workload for FHEO through the end of the year. I do want to thank the folks who have throughout the nation who have been working on this implementation for a couple of years, really, and have supported the reviews that you're going to learn about here and in the phase 2 of the implementation, because we've gone to them. They've helped out a lot of other regions, and so I don't want to call everybody out individually, but there are a handful of people throughout the nation who have been picking up the site neighborhood standards reviews and several other types of reviews required by the notice, and doing those for other regions. So thank you very much to all of you. And lastly, I want to thank the program standards team who has put all of this together, with Celia as the lead. And she's done a wonderful job of leading the team. Everybody has contributed, whether it was picking up additional clearances while other folks were writing documents and then sending them to legal, and then working on legal's feedback, and then picking up more clearances as somebody else worked on another document. So it's been a joint effort of the entire program standards team, and I'm very pleased with what they've done thus far, and they're excited about doing the training today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Celia, and she will give us the overview of RAD, and then we'll start digging into the rest of the agenda. Thank you, Celia.
Okay, great. Thanks, Krista. I wanted to start the training by giving a really brief overview of RAD and FHO's role in reviewing RAD conversions. RAD stands for the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, and the program was launched in 2012. RAD allows public housing and other types of HUD-assisted properties to convert to long-term project-based Section 8 contracts, either project-based vouchers, which are administered by PIH, or project-based rental assistance, which is administered by the Office of Multifamily Housing. Now, the purpose of RAD is to provide a tool to preserve and improve HUD's existing stock of affordable housing. By converting to project-based Section 8, PHAs are able to access the capital they need to rehabilitate, or in some cases to just demolish and reconstruct their most distressed properties. In order to participate in RAD, a PHA or project owner must meet the civil rights threshold requirement set forth in the RAD notice. This is essentially the same threshold requirement that we use for other HUD programs, particularly those that are awarded through NOFA funds. Under the civil rights threshold requirement, a PHA or project owner cannot have a charge, cause determination, lawsuit, or letter of finding against itself, its transferees, proposed development partners, or subrecipients that has not been resolved to HUD satisfaction. This review, or this requirement, was included in the very first RAD notice published in 2012, and it applies to all RAD conversions, whether it's public housing or other types of HUD-assisted housing. And currently, this review, at least for public housing, is conducted by PIH. So they check our civil rights threshold list on SharePoint to make sure that any RAD applicants are not listed on our SharePoint site as being on the threshold list. In June 2015, the revised RAD notice established a front-end civil rights review requirement for public housing conversions only. And in November 2016, HUD issued a RAD Fair Housing Civil Rights and Relocation Notice, which provided clarity regarding the applicable fair housing and civil rights requirements and the timing and submission requirements for these reviews for public housing conversions. The purpose of the front-end civil rights review is to assist PHAs in meeting their fair housing and civil rights obligations. Through the front-end civil rights review process, FHO reviews project proposals containing activities that we have identified as being particularly at risk of violating fair housing and civil rights laws. The next slide lists all of the reviews that we do. Kristen mentioned some of these earlier. The reviews are new construction, whether on a new site or on a current site in an area of minority concentration, transferring the assistance from the original public housing site to an existing project on a new site, reduction in the number of units at the project, changing the bedroom distribution at the project. So for example, if the project is currently made up of 3 and 4 bedroom units and the PHA wants to reconfigure the units to smaller units to like 1 and 2 bedrooms, we will review that conversion. Changes in occupancy at the project. So if the PHA wants to change who is served. So for example, if it's currently a family project and they want to adopt an elderly preference as part of the conversion, FHO would also review that as well. Relocation that is likely to exceed 12 months and new construction or substantial alteration, as those terms are defined in Section 504, are the other 2 reviews that we do. In addition to these, I think 7 reviews that we have, the RAD Civil Rights Notice also gives FHEO discretion to conduct reviews of RAD conversions in 2 other circumstances. One is when the project is subject to a VCA or conciliation agreement with HUD, or a consent decree or settlement agreement with HUD or DOJ, or when HUD has identified potential fair housing and civil rights concerns or history of such concerns with the PHA. Now, FHEO's front-end review may result in an approval or disapproval of the specific activity that we are reviewing. So an approval of a front-end civil rights review only means that the project has met the submission requirements, and that are required in the notice is that we have determined that we don't see any civil rights issues with what they are doing. It does not, and it would allow them to move forward in the RAD conversion process. It does not constitute a determination of that the project is in compliance with applicable fair housing civil rights requirements. And a disapproval, if HUD disapproves a specific activity subject to front-end civil rights review, it means that the RAD conversion may not proceed unless the concerns raised by FHEO are addressed. If FHEO makes a final disapproval of a specific RAD activity, it may be grounds for ending the RAD conversion. So this could result in revoking any RAD commitments previously made by the department, such as the issuance of a CHAP or an RCC. So that is just a brief overview of RAD and our role in the process. And as Krista mentioned, this training is the first step in building our capacity to conduct the reviews established in the Civil Rights Notice. So this training, as Krista mentioned, will cover site and neighborhood standards and the tools that we have to conduct those reviews. And we will be training on the other civil rights reviews at a later time. Are there any questions?
Dan, are we open on the line for questions?
Hi, everyone. This is Dan Gordon. If anyone has questions, there are a couple ways that you can get that out to us. You can use the raise your hand function, and then we can call on you and unmute your line so that you can ask your question, or you can type it into the question box. If you do want to say your question out loud, it's generally easier if you called into us using the phone number given. Sometimes that people's computer speakers aren't necessarily enabled. So just keep that in mind if you're raising your hand.
Right. I don't see anyone, Dan. I think we can move on. Okay. All right.
We do have one raised hand.
Oh, okay. We'll.
Oh yeah, look at that.
That looks like
Larry.
Larry. How are you, Larry?
I guess I don't know what to do with this.
We can hear you, Larry. Go ahead.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, where's the date going to be so we can review all of the properties that have gone through the process? Will it be in the PIC system, or there'll be somewhere else, a SharePoint site?
Let's make sure we heard you. You asked where can you find RAD reviews that have already gone through the process?
Right, or those properties that are undergoing the process.
So Larry, the best place is going to be the RAD resource desk. And just to note, everyone who is on this training, who signed up for the training, the 115 people that are participating, have been given rights to the RAD resource desk. And Linda Ossie is going to provide that overview as we get through the morning. So that is where all of the information is contained. Thank you for your question. All right. I think that's all we have for right now. I'm going to move on to introducing Billy Lynch, my colleague, and he is the Assistant General Counsel in the Office of Fair Housing, OGC Fair Housing. Sorry, I'm adopting you.
You may need to disconnect for people to hear. Oh, okay.
Okay. I think we're good. We're working on our technology. So thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. As I was saying, Billy Lynch is the Assistant General Counsel in the Office of OGC Fair Housing, and he has generously lent his staff to work with us over the past 2 months in preparing for this training, and it's been a great partnership and really appreciate it. And I want to give a shout out to Shira Gordon, who has been our point of contact throughout this past 2 months. So thank you, Shira, for all your effort too. And you get to present later in the morning. Mm-hmm. So thank you. And with that, Billy, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, excuse me, everybody for allowing me to talk briefly this morning about some of the legal underpinnings for the site neighborhood standards and more broadly that apply in the context of the RAD process. I will tell you, when I first joined HUD a couple years ago, and I was forced to learn about RAD, it made my head hurt. When I tried to explain it to other people, it made my head hurt. And but after getting into the weeds on it, I discovered something that is quite unique to the RAD program and really is a powerful thing from a variety of perspectives, including the fair housing perspective. If it is used correctly, it has the capacity to significantly improve the lives of our residents while simultaneously reversing the decades of inequality in the siting of certain public housing in rundown, minority concentrated areas, whether initially there or ultimately ended up in such areas. In my view, it can be what I would call a win-win-win-win for PIH in addressing a backlog of repairs, for housing, in putting together transactions to improve the quality of housing, for communities in developing in particular areas, and particularly in fair housing because of the item I mentioned. So I put it to you that it's actually one of the most powerful tools that fair housing has in its toolkit to, along with investigations and compliance reviews and enforcement and AFH reviews, among others, to achieve material positive change and to achieve meaningful fair housing choice. It will take time, but with each transaction, we can have a positive effect on the legacy of segregation within our country. If it's not used correctly, we are potentially perpetuating segregation, which is not only problematic from our policy focus, but it can also be problematic from a legal perspective. So I put it to you that in using the materials discussed in this great training that I've had the opportunity to review, the tools and the RAD Civil Rights Notice and individual transactions, you have the opportunity to work on the front line of dismantling historic patterns of segregation that have plagued us. Messes we created ourselves intentionally at times over many decades, and that continue to burden us socially, economically, and legally. So that's my general perspective, and I'd like to talk about the law and how we got to where we're at, and what applies in the context of RAD transactions, and how it can be useful to you as you're conducting your reviews. All major fair housing and civil rights authorities apply to RAD at some point in the process. This includes the Fair Housing Act, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, Titles 2 and 3 of the ADA, among others. The authorizing legislation for RAD uniquely includes a prohibition on certain waivers, and one of those is fair housing and non-discrimination requirements. So that's very important, and that provides important cover for ensuring that the good fair housing work can continue in this context. What's interesting about the laws that HUD deals with, the ones I mentioned, the obligations are often shared between HUD and our grantees. either by the receipt of federal financial assistance or because they just apply to both of us or we pass it down. And also to other members of the transaction at times. So if you have public accommodation, they would be covered by Title III of the ADA, for example. There are other civil rights authorities built into the program statutes into our regulations that also apply. Section 109, which prohibits discrimination in the receipt of CPD funding on the basis of race, color, national origin, disability, age, religion, and sex can apply. The equal access rules, which prohibit denial of HUD-assisted, HUD-insured housing on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and marital status, will apply. Section 3, which requires training, employment, and contracting be directed to low and very low-income persons and businesses, will apply. And importantly, and most of the training will focus on what are called the site and neighborhood standards, which you may have worked with in other contexts or in the RAD context. And what these are is HUD's attempt to institutionalize a mechanism to dismantle the historic patterns of segregation that are precursor agency created and which our agency created at times. So we promulgated regulations in the form of what are called site and neighborhood standards, and they're similar. They're tests for development of new construction in areas of minority concentration and for authorizing transfers of assistance among developments. I'm going to briefly take you through a number of important cases to tell you how we got to those site and neighborhood standards and why they are critical. There was a case in 1970 in the Third Circuit, Shannon v. HUD, where the circuit court found that HUD is required to utilize, and this is the quote, some institutionalized method whereby in considering site selection or type selection, it has before it the relevant racial and socioeconomic information necessary for compliance with its duties under the 1964 and 1968 Civil Rights Act. That's Title VI in the Fair Housing Act. In 1987, in a case NAACP v. HUD, the court determined that the Fair Housing Act is an obligation to do more than simply refrain from discrimination and from purposely aiding discrimination of others, but HUD is required to use its grant program, so the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, to assist in ending discrimination and segregation to the point where the supply of genuinely open housing increases. In 1973, there's a case Otero versus NYCHA, the Second Circuit, where there was a challenge to a neighborhood preference for replacement housing in an urban renewal area. And the court held there that action must be taken to fulfill as much as possible the goal of open, integrated residential housing patterns and to prevent the increase of segregation. And they used the terminology in the case in the 70s in ghettos of racial groups whose lack of opportunities the act was designed to combat. The cases, these are just but a few cases, and they continue to this day. In 2005, in a case against HUD, Thompson v. HUD, involving the Baltimore region, the court held that HUD violated the Fair Housing Act by concentrating black public housing residents in low-income and segregated areas of Baltimore and failing to adequately consider regional approaches to minimizing segregation in public housing. All of these cases, which take various principles from, the affirmatively furthering fair housing requirement of the Fair Housing Act, from site selection requirements in Title VI and Section 504, are intended to, are built into the site neighborhood standards. But the site neighborhood standards are not, they are not the end-all with respect to the civil rights obligation. So one thing you'll see in the civil rights notice is that there are certain things that HUD will review, and there are certain things that the PHA is responsible for. Now, when we painstakingly negotiated the civil rights notice last year, we made sure that there was a process for FHO to get additional information should issues come up during front-end civil rights reviews. But those triggers that you're seeing in that document are intended to capture the big ticket items for when civil rights issues come up, the ones that often are almost are irreversible, that you would require a court injunction to get after many years of litigation. So a lot of you'll see the requirements are placed on the PHA, and we're doing a more limited evaluation to limit our liability to achieve the fair housing outcomes, but also to ensure that the PHAs are doing what they are supposed to be doing, reflective of the case law. I want to just take a second in concluding and thank the program standards team. It has been a great working relationship on these materials. They've done an excellent job in advancing a very complicated program and helping operationalize the framework in the Civil Rights Notice. And a particular thank you to our legal honor, Shira Gordon, who has done a really terrific job in fielding many of the questions. So we're always available in our office for questions if they come up. And we look forward to watching the productive changes that come from the civil rights reviews and the RAD process going forward. I don't know if there's time for questions, but I'm happy to try to answer any if there are.
I think we have time to take one or two questions, but while we're waiting to see if we do have questions, I just want to thank Billy very much once again and Shira for their enduring support, not just on this, but many other things to which we turn to them for legal guidance and support. So thank you, and also thank you for giving us the historical context of why we're doing what we're doing, and the fact that Site and Neighborhood Standards was born of case law. So I think that's an important place for us to start from. Do we have a question?
Yeah, we have a question. I can read it out. Yeah. Can you provide a copy of the cases you were referencing during the training?
So that's a great question, Ronald Lynn. Thank you. There actually, what I'd refer you to is a document that I think it's PRAC recently just released, which is a timeline that is an incredibly comprehensive timeline of case law throughout the past 80, 90 years of from the fair housing perspective. That's something that you could refer to, but we certainly would be happy to identify cases. You know, they're not always going to be relevant. It's going to depend on the particular circumstance. So I wouldn't want to just dump a bunch of cases on you, but that timeline will give you that historical perspective.
And we will be following up with an email, so we can include the PRAC, the link to the PRAC timeline that Billy is just referencing.
Yeah, we have another question from Melody. Can you address legal's perspective on this program and gentrification?
Thank you, Melody, for the terrific question. I'm not sure that there is sufficient time to really wade into all of the challenging issues related to RAD and gentrification. Gentrification is a challenge in reversing historical patterns of segregation, and I think it's something that we're going to have to struggle with. So I'm sorry to give you a non-answer, but I am concerned about it from a legal perspective. How about that?
All right. Well, thank you for the questions, and again, thank you, Billy and Shira. And we're going to move on to the protocols. So we've established and I want to thank Gloria for working on this, many drafts of the RAD protocols for field implementation. And she's going to do the presentation on the protocols itself, but I do want to note that we did provide this to the regional directors who had an opportunity to provide feedback to us. And so it does reflect feedback that we've received. And I want to note also that all of this it's not a final product in the sense that it's final as of this day, but if we learn some better way to do things, then we'll adjust the protocols or we'll adjust the site and neighborhood standards list or checklist. So, so we look forward to taking theory into practice and refining this as we go along. So with that, Gloria.
Thank you, Krista. So as Krista mentioned, I will be presenting to you the RAD front-end civil rights review, FHEO headquarters and field office protocol. So I'm sure by now everyone has read it, analyzed it, memorized it, put it out a hard copy for easy and quick reference. But for the very few that haven't, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the process that Krista and the RAD team have come up with to ensure that these reviews are assigned and conducted in the most efficient manner. So first, here's some important highlights that I want everyone to remember as we delve deeper into some of the details. All of our front-end reviews will be initiated through the use of the RAD resource desk. Once the PHA uploads their documentation to the resource desk, the headquarters desk officer will become aware or notified that there is a review to be assigned to a regional director or their designee. And this is the only system that we will be used to assign these reviews, as well as transmit the approval and disapproval letters to the Office of Recapitalization and the PHA. Regional directors are responsible for providing final signature on all the approvals and disapprovals for site neighborhood standards reviews. For other reviews, such as the accessibility relocation checklist, the regional director or their designee can sign off on those. Field office staff reviewers are required to complete both the front-end review checklist as well as an approval or disapproval letter using the templates as they become available. A completed checklist as well as a signed approval or disapproval letter are to be uploaded to the SharePoint site, whereas only the signed approval or disapproval letter is to be uploaded to the resource desk. So we're asking that there won't be any checklist uploaded to or stored on the resource desk, just the signed approval and disapproval letters. For a 12-month period, Krista, or the Deputy Assistant Secretary of APLEO, will be, and the headquarters desk officers will be playing a larger role in the review process for the site and neighborhood standards review. The headquarters desk officers will be doing a second level review of the approvals and disapprovals for site and neighborhood standards. And we wanted to kind of give like just a period where we can both smooth out any issues that may arise and ensure that we're on the same page with completing these reviews in a timely fashion. So how long do we have to, or how long do you have to complete a front-end review? So for site and neighborhood standards and the accessibility and relocation checklist, a field office staff reviewer has 60 days from the time that it is assigned to a regional director. So at the end of the 60-day timeline, we're expected that the signed checklist and the signed approval letters will be uploaded to the SharePoint site, and the signed approval or disapproval letters will be uploaded to the RAD resource desk. We're asking for the site and neighborhood standards review that the field office staff reviewers send their completed checklist and their approval disapproval letter to their corresponding headquarters desk officer at least 3 weeks prior to the 60-day deadline. And this is just to take in consideration of the desk officer's second level review, as well as if further analysis may be needed. So for reduction in units, changes in unit configuration, changes in occupancy reviews, the reviewer has 30 days from the time that it has been assigned to the regional director or their designee. So in signing and conducting front-end reviews, as I mentioned, the headquarters desk officer is going to be notified that there's a review that needs to be assigned. And once they assign it to the regional director or their designee, the director will get notification that there is a review that they need to assign to a field office staff member. Once the field office staff member gets the notification that they are going to sign a review, they should go to the resource desk and download the PHA documentation, and also complete their review using an appropriate checklist, and also draft the approval or disapproval letter, as I mentioned, with the templates as they become available. So once they complete the checklist and they have the approval or disapproval letter, they'll send that to the regional director or their designee, who then reviews it and provides their concurrence. So as I mentioned, during this 12-month headquarters and field office implementation period, I guess there would be more involvement from the headquarters desk officer. So once the regional director provides concurrence, the field office staff reviewer sends that checklist and approval letter to the headquarters desk officer, who will then do their review for completeness and accuracy. If they find that if the headquarters desk officer finds that there really doesn't, the data that they provided does not support an approval, they will notify Krista or the Clio DAS, who will then notify the regional director, letting them know that there may be further analysis needed. But however, if the headquarters desk officer agrees that the recommendation for approval is sufficient, the regional director is then sent the approval letter, who then signs the approval letter, and then the field office staff uploads that checklist to the SharePoint site, as well as the sign letter, and then uploads the sign letter to the RAD resource desk. Once the letter has been uploaded to the resource desk, the regional director or the designee will receive notification that it needs to be certified, or that it can be sent to a PHA. So the regional director or the designee goes into the resource desk and will provide that certification, and the PHA will be notified via research desk that the approval letter is there. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so now if we're submitting a disapproval for insufficient data, and if the field office staff member begins their review and find that the PHA documentation lacks sufficient information and they're not really able to complete their analysis or complete the checklist, they will have to draft up a disapproval letter and then send the checklist or the portion of the checklist that they have completed in their disapproval letter to the regional director, who then, or the designee, and who then reviews it and provides signature. As you know, you can, they don't have to provide this to the headquarters desk officer. This is going to be an independent review process for the field office staff. So the field office staff reviewer uploads the checklist and assign disapproval letter to SharePoint, and uploads the signed letter to the RAD resource desk, who also, the regional director will receive notification that the letter needs to be certified, and the disapproval letter will be sent to, or sent to the PHA. Now we have submitting a disapproval for a final RAD transaction where they feel that the actual conversion has the intent or purpose of discrimination. The reviewer, the regional director provides concurrence, and the field office staff reviewer sends the completed checklist and a disapproval letter to the headquarters desk officer, who also does their review for accuracy and completeness. Just like in approvals, if the headquarters desk officer does not feel that this review requires a disapproval, they will notify Krista or the Clio DAS, who will then confer with their regional director. However, the headquarters desk officer does believe that that analysis that they provided does substantiate for disapproval. The regional director will sign the disapproval letter, and then the field office staff member will upload the complete checklist to SharePoint and upload the signed letter, disapproval letter, to the RAD resource desk. And then the regional director will certify or designate and certify that in the resource desk. For the 12-month period, we have envisioned a debriefing strategy Debriefing strategy for the final RAD transaction disapproval. This is just to keep everyone on the same page. Once the regional director has submitted the final disapproval letter to the RAD resource desk, they will then submit the final disapproval to the OPO desk, Krista, and schedule a meeting with Krista, the headquarters RAD team lead, and their corresponding desk officer. Then the regional director or designee will schedule a debriefing meeting with the Office of Recapitalization as well as the PHA. And like I said, this is the process during the 12-month headquarters and field office implementation period. So I've mentioned many a times throughout the presentation that there are headquarters desk officers, and if you have not been in contact with your desk officer, you can see from the slides here your corresponding region, and feel free to contact them with any questions or concerns about reviews or this training, or if you need more information. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them at this time.
Dan, can you read those for us?
Okay, there's a question from Jeffrey Sussman. When does the 12-month implementation period begin, or will it begin?
Thanks, Jeff, for the question. It will begin after this training. So, yes, so that's why other folks across the nation have been picking up some of the work. But yes, it will begin after this training. I also want to add, while we're waiting to see if there are other questions, the debrief that we put into the protocol is born of experience with the Office of Recapitalization as well as the partners, the PHA, because there was a lot of miscommunication and actually kind of a telephone game way of communicating the information, in that it went back through our approval or disapproval, went back through the Office of Recapitalization, who then did its best to communicate the results of our review to the PHA. And so we have switched that process, in that we are directly going to first debrief the Office of Recapitalization, and we are going to communicate directly with the PHA. So rather than sending a memo to the Office of Recapitalization, which some of you may be familiar with from having done these reviews, we will actually be issuing and signing the letter that goes to the Public Housing Authority communicating our decision. So that is part of the communication. And also, just again from the Secretary's briefing this morning, he's looking for efficiencies and communication across all of our program lines, and how we can better not stumble. So part of the debriefing is part of that process to make sure that we're moving quickly when we make our decisions. Okay, we've got Dan.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions. I have a question from Greg. So does this mean we no longer need to do memos for site and neighborhood standard reviews, just the checklist and the letter?
Yes, that is correct.
We have a question from Andrew. In case of a disapproval, will the PHA be able to resubmit with corrections to address FHEO's concerns?
Specifically for the disapprovals for insufficient data, the letter or the template will notify the PHA that they will have an opportunity to resubmit.
And I will note with an asterisk that sometimes there are PHAs that will want to resubmit additional information once they receive our final our disapproval, and we'll sometimes come up with additional information that does support changing the decision. Other times it does not, and so we do, in some cases, there is a secondary consideration. All right. Okay, I think that is it for our questions. And Gloria, you're going to introduce Linda. Or Celia, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Krista. We are privileged to have with us Linda Osey from the FPG team, who they work as contractors with the Office of Recapitalization on implementing RAD. Linda has been involved in helping get the FHEO page on the RAD resource desk up and running from the very beginning, so we are really privileged to have her knowledge and expertise here. So thank you so much, Linda. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks very much. We're just going to bring the RAD resource desk up on the screen so everybody can take a look at it. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm going to go ahead and log in as a reviewer. It'll give you guys the opportunity to see what the pages look like and where you'd be entering the information, uploading your approval letters and that type of thing. When you first come onto the site, you'll see you have three main menu selections. One of them is My PHA Libraries. If you're an administrator in the program, you might have FHEO reviewer assignments. Most of you will not. That's more of an administrative function for the FHEO team, or a document library. This RAD is the same RAD resource desk that the PHAs are using, that the transaction managers are using, who are reviewing the financial plans and that type of thing. We're all logged onto the same resource desk, and it allows all of the documents to be shared. So if we click on My PHA Properties, it will take you into the RAD transactions. The top bar will be any RAD transaction that's been assigned to you that is still in process, that still has a review for you to review. Or an upload for you to review. And you'll click on that and you'll see you get a list of all of the RAD transactions that have been assigned to you for one type of review or another. You can tell by the column next to the end there if documents have been uploaded or not. You should see yeses and nos there. You can sort these. So you can sort on pick number, property name, PHA, any of these categories of any of these columns of summary information here allow you to sort. So as you're looking through things, it'll just give you the opportunity to look different ways. You might be looking for a particular PHA. Do they have other reviews pending? Do I have, how many properties for a particular PHA? So we're going to go ahead and click on a property name, which will take you to the actual review page for that property. You've got some basic information at the top, including who the two primary FHEO reviewers are that have been assigned to the transaction. In this case, one has not been assigned yet. Those are the two people that are going to be responsible for coming back on to the site and giving that final approval. So if you see something that's tied up, that's a good resource to go back to, in addition to the process that Gloria has already gone through. That should be a name that flows right into her flow chart. And then if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the four primary review categories that FHEO is going to be taking care of. The third column there, that uploaded FHEO documents. When a PHA uploads a document to the RAD resource desk in their section, this is where it will show up for FHEO to go and retrieve that document for review. When they upload a document, FHEO will be notified. Gloria went through that chain of that notification, so it'll go to the FHEO main desk email. They'll set an FHEO reviewer. FHEO reviewer will set staff assignments who are actually doing the reviews. So there's a kind of a three-tier process there. When a document gets uploaded, whoever the most recent level is will get that email notification. So if it's the first time an PHA uploads a document, it's going to go to the FHEO general email box. If another document gets uploaded before it gets assigned to a staff assignment, it'll go to the FHEO reviewer. Once you receive the staff assignment, you'll be getting the email notifications when a PHA uploads additional information. And that might be because they have something else to add that they have or have discussed with you, or it might be that you've made a request for additional information and they're coming back in with another uploaded document. But all of them will be in that uploaded FHEO documents category or column. The NA right to the left of that is an indication that the PHA and the transaction manager on the RAD team have reviewed it, and that there is not a need for that FHEO review. So in this case, they've decided that there is no change in occupancy type, therefore FHEO does not need to review it, and they've put an NA in that box. And that's just a way so that you know what else is going on, and it's also a way that will help us know when these deals move from being reviews pending versus a completed. So we're not waiting for a review that isn't necessary. So you'll receive a notification that you've been assigned to, or you've had documents uploaded for one of your reviews. You can log on here, you'll pull the document up and do your review. When you've completed your review, as Gloria mentioned, you have a couple of options. You can say that the review was confirmed, it's approved, you're good to go. In that case, you're going to upload the signed letter to the PHA, and then you will go over and in your reviewer, in the FHEO final disposition column there next to the last one, you're going to put in the date that you're giving that approval. There's also a comments box there if you want to provide any additional comments. You will not be able to put a date into that box until you have uploaded your signed letter to the PHA. If you are going to reject the review, you have a column for submission rejected. You can enter a date. And again, you're going to need to upload the signed letter to the PHA indicating why you're rejecting it and put your submission rejected. There are two different kinds of rejections here that Chris had mentioned to you. One of them is that there's something wrong with the review, you don't have enough data, but it's something that's curable, that you expect the PHA to come back to you with more information. That's your submission rejected column. There will be times where you see this as being an incurable situation, that they're just not meeting what you're requiring them to meet, and this is going to impact the entire transaction. And if you feel that, that's the situation that you have, under your FHEO final disposition, you'll see a transaction rejected. Transaction rejected means just that. You, in your review, you've decided that this entire transaction is not going to meet your FHEO standards, and you're sending it back as the entire transaction is being rejected. After you've made your decisions and you've entered your dates, you've uploaded your letters, there's a save button on the bottom right here. And when you click that save button, the FHEO reviewer is going to get an email that you've completed your review and it's ready for them to go on and give it their final approval. And they're going to go on and take one more look at it. When they log on and they've looked at it one more time and they're happy with the way that it's gone, you know, it's what you guys have discussed, it's what the emails back and forth have talked about, they're going to go in and on that reviewer confirmation, they're going to enter the date. When they enter that date and hit save button, then the PHA and the transaction manager for RAD will get a notification of the approval or the rejection or the disapproval. So there's a couple of opportunities here where you'll be able to make sure everyone's happy with it, all the reviews are complete, it gets a final look, and then the PHA and the transaction manager will be notified. They'll get an email notification at the time that date is entered and saved. And there's also a record on the PHA's page. So when you go to the PHA page, you would see a grid very similar to the one you're having, but with all of the financing plan documents that they have to submit. And on that page, they will also see your approval or rejection. So we're going to go back to the RD home. In addition to having this section at the top that lets you see it, we can go to My PHA Libraries again. In addition to seeing the active properties that are assigned to you as a reviewer, you also have the ability to look at all of the RAD transactions. And this was the question from earlier today. We've categorized these into basically 4 buckets. It's all properties under review, which means that there is a review that is currently being looked at by FHEO. So it's an active property in the RAD transaction process, and there is documents have been uploaded, and FHEO is taking a look at it. All properties pending document submission. This would be, it's in the RAD process, but so far they have not uploaded any documents for FHEO review. So this is going to give you the ability to see all of the RAD transactions, but they'll fall into one of those 2 categories, all of the active transactions. They're either going to be with FHEO, or you will have documents pending. And if we close that one up, Dan, we'll see the other option here is all reviews complete, property not closed. So it's still active. It's gone through its FHEO review. We have no more FHEO reviews outstanding. You're not waiting for documents. All 4 of the categories have been met. And it's ready to close as far as FHEO is concerned, but it's still not closed the RAD portion of its transaction. And then the last bucket here will be the closed properties. So these properties have already closed the RAD program. They've gone through the whole process and they're closed, but they're still here for you to reference. This is going to give you basically access on a read-only basis to the entire RAD program and what it's done with the FHEO. And it's a lot of properties. As you can see, the lists are long. So we've built at the top a way for you to do some filtering. You can go up just a little bit, Dan, for me. Up in the search functions here, you can search by state. You can search by a property name, or you can search by the HUD region. And that is being changed to region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 10, where I thought we had made that last night. We didn't quite get it. So Dan, you want to just pick, as an example, let's just pick Massachusetts and hit the filter list so they can just see what that looks like. Thanks. So now you'll see on all properties under review, now we only have the one property in Massachusetts. That one's going to be the one that opens up there. And if you click on the other blue bars with the plus or minuses, so all properties pending, you'll see that you're only seeing Massachusetts throughout. So it's just an easier way to help you start to find the information you're looking for. And it keeps the sorting at the top of each column. So after you've used the filters, and you can use all three of those filters, after you've used the filters, it also lets you still do the sorting either by pick number, property name, PHA, chap date, that type of thing, RCC issue date. The RCC, they're getting close to closing, so those might be a little more important if you have something that has an RCC issue. You know, it's just good to know kind of the timeline where they stand in the RAD program. And then the one other thing that I wanted to show you guys today, if we go back to the RAD RD home again, in addition to the My PHA libraries where you can see all of the RAD properties, especially those that are assigned to you, you'll see down a couple blue bars down, we have some reports. All active RAD transactions, HUD stats, and SN, those two are overall RAD program reports. The FHEO status report and the FHEO approvals report are the two, and SNS status reports. These are the reports that are probably going to be most useful to you. We're going to go ahead and click on the FHEO status report. This is the one that seems to be used most often. And what it's going to do is give you an Excel file, and it's going to give you one worksheet in the file for each of the 4 different types of FHEO reviews, and it's going to show you the active FHEO transactions pending. I'll give you my cheat help here. I hit save first and then open, because I think it processes faster. I can't explain that technology-wise, but it just seems to work better. So you'll see down at the bottom, we have accessibility, occupancy, SNS, unit configuration. Those are the 4 FHEO big review buckets, and you'll have one worksheet for each of those, and it will just list all of the current properties under FHEO review. So it's a nice little summary that hopefully helps you find things maybe a little easier to have this handy in sorting than trying to sort them always on the resource desk where you have so many properties. It gets a little overwhelming. So that is the big picture. It follows really exactly what Gloria gave you as a process for you know, conducting the review, having your approval or your disapproval. That'll go to a final review, and then it gets closed out and gets passed on to the PHA and the transaction manager for RAD. I think it's probably a lot to comprehend right now. With you don't get deserted on the RAD resource desk. So Celia and her team, Gloria and her team, and the RAD resource desk itself, who I can represent in this instance, we're always here to help you figure out, you know, what something isn't working, what am I missing, where should I put that date, why won't it let me put a date in, you know, answer being because you didn't upload the document, that type of thing. So don't feel lost with it. Our goal here today was to sort of give you a look at it, start to have you get familiar with it, and then as you start to do the reviews, I think it will all fall into place and make more sense for you. Dan, you want to just switch us back over to the resource desk view? And so for those of you that have done reviews, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. For those of you that haven't, if there's questions, happy to take them, but I think it'll make more sense to you once you start actually signing on using it. And as I mentioned, you should all have access now, but if you don't, we can help you get that too. So we'll just put them on My PHA libraries a while, and we can check for questions and see. But that's where most of their questions are, I think. So does PIH conduct any quality control reviews prior to submitting to FHEO for review?
I don't think that's a question we know the answer to. So we'll have to find out, and we'll send that when we respond to the field with some additional follow-up. We'll have an answer for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but when I talked about the civil rights threshold list, like when at least for public housing, when the PHA does apply for RAD, I know there's a lot of threshold requirements the PHA needs to meet, and I know that PIH checks for those in advance of giving them a CHAP, which is allowing them, approving them to proceed in RAD. Beyond that, I don't know what other reviews that they have. So if you have a more specific question, you can check.
Yeah, I was interpreting as, are they doing a quality control?
Right.
Everything they are.
Yeah.
So you can let us know. Lynn.
I think you followed up with the question.
Yeah. So how does, the follow-up is, how does FHEO know they have all the documents to conduct the review? You'll know what you need, and the PHA is uploading directly, which is going directly to you and notifying you. There's not an interim step, so it's not, the PHA doesn't upload it, a RAD person reviews it or a PIH person reviews it, and then it goes to you. As soon as the PHA uploads one of your documents, you get notified. So there is going to be a chance that it doesn't have everything that you need, and you're going to have to communicate that back to the PHA. Hopefully, they understand what the requirements are, and they will have uploaded a complete submission to you. But another question from Kate: if we hit save just while we've made comments for ourselves in the far right column, does it alert up the chain of command, or only if you've entered a date in the rejection approval column? It only alerts up the chain if you've entered the date in the rejection or approval column. However, do keep in mind that others will be able to view your comments. So they're not, if someone else happens to log on to that review, they will see your comment even if you haven't approved or rejected it yet. So it is a more or less public comment, which is a great question and good to know.
And again, why we stood up the, we'll keep FHEO documents such as the checklist, that's an internal deliberative document that will be kept separate and apart from the resource desk.
Question from Joanne: I noticed that not every state with a field office is listed on the state drop-down menu on the RAD site, leading me to believe that not every state participates in RAD. Is that an accurate assessment? Yes. The states that you should get in your drop-down box are the states that have RAD transactions in them. Any other questions?
Linda, I have a question for you. If we could go back to the documents to be uploaded, so all pending document submission. If you can drop that down. Thank you, Dan. So one of the things that we've been working on is, and why we've added this particular report and asked that you guys do that, so thank you, is so that the regional directors can look at the workload that they have before them and not just what's been put into the resource desk to act upon that particular day. And how would we know if these have FHEO involvement? Is this the universe of the RAD transactions that are pending document submissions, or these?
It is.
It's the universe. It's not the FHEO.
It's the FHEO universe. So
okay.
But it's overwhelming at first because the transaction manager and the PHA probably haven't started hitting those NA buttons about the reviews that aren't required right away. They're probably 150, 180 days into the chat being issued before they start saying whether or not all of that is going to be required. So what's going to drop it from here is if they checked NA for the 3 out of the 4 and you've reviewed that 4th one, which doesn't have an NA option in it. There's one there at the end that you have to review them all. So once we can eliminate it from this list, we know no documents need to be uploaded because either you have reviewed them or they have an NA with them, then it will drop off. So it's, I guess that's a loaded question, right? It's sort of the RAD universe and it's the possible FHEO universe, but some of this will get weeded out by the nature of NA boxes versus FHEO actually having to review every single one of them, which is making me think we need something better for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You don't even have to say that first.
Okay.
So I will make a note of that to see if there's I'm going to have to think about that and maybe talk to Celia and you, and if we can figure that out. But I get where you're going. It doesn't give you a true, and I'm not sure. I think the real answer there is when in the RAD transaction do they know when they're going to need to come to FHEO and when they're not.
Yeah, that again, that would be helpful because as we look at the resources that we have to conduct these reviews, that the regional directors would like to be able to, and we would like to be able to, I would like to be able to anticipate what our workload is going forward into the end of FY17, because the numbers that I gave as we began, I had to go to the Office of Recapitalization to get those numbers about how many are in Region 4 and how many are in Region 3. This way, excuse me, what I'm trying to provide for all of us in FHEO is a way to fish for ourselves rather than going back to the Office of Recapitalization for that workload. So
Okay.
that's the end game. But thank you. This gets us closer to
Yeah, and we did split the ones where we knew you had documents pending versus ones that seemed to be just sitting there waiting.
Mm-hmm.
The good and the bad, I guess. The good because it's coming through FHEO, and the bad that it adds to the workload for FHEO is there is that fourth review. Dan, if you just click on a property for me for a second. Down at the very bottom, the accessibility and relocation checklist, they can't waive that. All of those have to come through you, so every single RAD transaction is going to hit you eventually. But it might be, maybe that's part of this is going to be to figure out which ones just have this pending versus, you know, what you're expecting up at the top, which might be a little more.
Yeah, and that's helpful for that's helpful for a number of reasons, because we do know that we're always going to get the accessibility checklist. In terms of workload planning, site neighborhood standards over the past couple of years, our estimate is it can be up to 8 hours of work or 80 hours of work, depending on how complete the submission is or the levels of review it has to go through. So that would be a larger workload planning, as opposed to change in occupancy and unit reduction, which can be anywhere from an hour to 4 hours of work. So yeah, knowing when those might be coming in would be very helpful.
Well, we'll take that offline and figure out how to make that a little more fine-tuned for you to get a better idea.
Great. Thank you so much.
So from Melvin, good morning. On a similar issue, regarding the transaction tracking system, can the AFHMPs be assigned through this process? Maybe this is an off-topic question that can be answered later.
Yeah, so the resource desk does not capture the affirmative fair housing marketing plans that need to be reviewed for RAD transactions. I think the main reason that it was decided to keep it off of here is because the marketing plan is no longer required as a condition for closing your RAD conversion. It can be completed after the RAD conversion is completed, whereas the rest of these reviews that are listed on this page all need to be completed and approved in order for the RAD conversion to proceed. And then I think the other reason too is because the marketing plans are supposed to be just following our standard process that we use to review all marketing plans, whether or not they involve a RAD project. So that was a decision that was made to not include it on the resource desk.
We're just checking for any other questions. Tom, we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, he unraised his hand.
Did he unraise it or did you clear it? Can we just click and make sure? So Tom, we're just checking. Do you have a question for us?
Yes, I wonder if a PowerPoint or something of this training will be available.
Are you talking about this particular presentation or all of the presentations thus far?
Mainly the front-end review timeline flowcharts, and
Okay.
this
Yes, so let me answer that quickly. If it didn't get to you, all of the presentations that do have PowerPoints associated with them, since Linda's presentation was live, there is not a PowerPoint presentation associated with that, and there was not one associated with legal's presentation this morning. But the entire slide deck was provided about an hour before the training got started, because we were working on it up until late last night and this morning to make sure it was comprehensive. So the slide deck is out there, as well as the protocol, the site neighborhood standards checklist. Was that your question?
Yes.
If you need us to forward that specifically to you, we have two Toms on the, which Tom is it? I can't see.
That's QEFED.
Okay. We can make sure we send that to you when we take our break. Okay, Tom?
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
We're going to post all of these presentations on the resource desk once they're done anyway. So.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I thank you for letting us show you the resource desk, and as I mentioned, plenty of help out there. And if you send it to RAD Resource, there's a link on the site for help, which we'll just refer that back to the right FATO person, or it might just be accessibility, and we can help you with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. That was very helpful. And just so everyone knows, I mean, there's two parts to this training. One is obviously the process, which we've been talking about this morning, and as well as the foundation. But and then also the substance of the actual review, which will start in the afternoon, and after our break. And we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I do want to recognize the Office of Recapitalization, because everything that you see, as well as our staff, Sylvia Nelson in particular, worked to make sure that this information is in the order that it is, and that you have the views that you have available to you and the ways to sort it. So there was a lot of work behind the scenes. You can see why it took 2 months to get all of this information ready to present to the field. But Linda, thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation. It's very helpful. All right, so we're just a little bit ahead of schedule. So I do want to add one last thing before we take a little extra break or extra time for our break. So behind the scenes process, which we have not put into the protocol because it's more of a function of just the headquarters internally. Linda had mentioned that that when a review is uploaded by the PHA, there is an email that goes to the FATO mailbox. That mailbox is monitored by the desk officers. Each desk officer has 1 month out of, well, in succession, there's just 6 of them, so they have to alternate. So they have 2 months out of the year, but they check that on a daily basis, and they then provide that information to the desk officer assigned to that particular region, or may consult with me if another region is going to conduct that review based on capacity of a particular region. And that is a 24-hour process. So when you look at the protocols that Gloria went through, excuse me, and you have a 60-day review period, the goal of headquarters and the instructions the staff have to follow up is a 24-hour turnaround. So you get 59 days out of those 60 days, but that we're not taking 10 days away from your review time. And if there are any problems with that, or any functional problems with that, let us know, and we will work out that issue, whatever it might be. All right. We want to check one more time to see if there are any questions, and then we will conclude. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank all the presenters this morning, and we're going to reconvene at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm sorry, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Well, let's just go with 2 p.m. So 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and we will see you then. Thank you so much.
I do have another question.
Oh, we do? Okay.
David, you can ask your
Yes, hi. Can you hear me now?
Hi, David.
Hi. I had a question about the four categories. Shouldn't there be another category regarding citizen participation or is that going to be included in the SNN checklist? Or maybe the question is premature. I don't know.
Are you thinking of the assessments of fair housing?
Yeah, I'm regarding the project itself and how it will impact the neighborhood and how the citizens will be given the opportunity to assess the project and provide input. And, you know, the normal CP procedures.
For RAD, the way that citizen and resident feedback is solicited is through the PHA plan process. So all of the RAD notice is quite detailed about what the PHA must include in its plan regarding what they are going to be doing under their RAD conversion. So that is how public input is received for these deals, but it's not something that we review in FHEO. It's something that the PIH reviews when they review the PHA plan.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Good question.
Maybe you should have been on the negotiations team when we negotiated that notice, the civil rights. Thank you, David.
All right. One more, I think. Is there one more, Dan?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right. We'll reconvene at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you.